Hello, today we're hitting two birds with one stone because at first we'll be talking about big data and smart grid in the energy field in France, and then we'll answer a controversial event that occurred in this related field. So at first I will note EE for energy efficiency. So since we are dealing with highly political matters, I have a disclaimer. So I'm not employed nor sold by or to any company named in this video. So I know about energy market and I'm too young to have any like lobbying involved. And I use the knowledge that I have and that I will explain. The only lobbying that can be noticed is the French lobby, because I will name companies that are relatively small in the energy business, but all of them are French. So if you want to address a complaint, it's more that the companies are not French, except Norske Skog, because it's an example. And I will try to be as not neutral as possible. So at first, what I called energy efficiency big data is a smart grid, process optimization, power plant management and maintenance, and the detection of anomalies. So I'm not at all a computer scientist, but from I understand, big data is like you have a lot of data to work with, so a bunch of variables that you have in this case to compute in real time. So that's what we call the smart grid. We need to filter interesting values. So once you have the data, you have to like say which one are interesting, which one are not interesting. You have to put them into a displayer, so monitoring. You have to alert the engineers when there is a problem or something they should be aware of. And it's indeed a collaboration between an energy engineer and a COMSI engineer. So both are in this new technology deeply linked. And it's important for them it's important to have a communication between the two. So how does the energy market work in France? At first, the production is mainly done by EDF, so Électricité de France, Electricity of France, by nuclear plants. I will go a bit further in the production a bit later, and theoretically by anyone, because as new technologies develop, you can have your own solar panels, your own wind turbine, and so anyone could theoretically go into the production part. Then in the transport part, so in long distances, is managed by RTE, Réseau Transport d'Électricité, so a network transport of electricity. They manage the circuits of electricity in very long range and high voltage. Then the distribution, so from the big and long cables to small and local distribution, it's done by the company Enedis and sometimes by local distribution companies, so they don't have the monopoly. And marketing, usually by EDF before 2007, and theoretically anyone who has money, and I will explain that a bit more later. So this is what the electricity system looks like. So in the first July of 2007, the market switched between a state market of EDF. So EDF is a state company. Well, it's not really a state company. It's mostly owned by the state because there are other investors, but there are minors. To an open market. So they said, okay, any customer can choose his energy producer, and any company can choose to distribute market, to supply energy to a customer. So when you open this kind of market, it's a decision that is indeed intricated to the European Union, because the first goal in the Maastricht Treaty is to have this kind of open markets, and this is what the European Union chooses. And this choice is inherently political. It's like it's a choice. So if you vote for it, you are happy. If you don't vote for it, you are not happy. So if you voted for Europe, I guess it's fine. You are happy with this decision. And there is another organ called the CRE, Commission de Régulation de l'Énergie. So it's a commission that regulates energy. They monitor energy companies, and they decided, oh, so EDF produces all the energy and supplies all the energy? No, 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 that's not possible. So what they said is that maybe it's unfair for them to have a monopoly if we want to be in a very capitalistic world in which there are more suppliers than the state supplier. So the original system was like this. The customers pays EDF that produces the electricity. The electricity is then transferred to RTE, and then RTE transfers it to Enedis. Enedis transfers it locally to the customer. Now, with this new regulation, adds a new company X, and the company X will, well, it can produce the energy, but what's most common is that they buy energy from EDF because they can't produce enough compared to EDF. So they buy from EDF and the customer pay X. So theoretically, if we analyze this situation, the company X must pay more because they had a block in this chain, but they don't add any value. They just buy it. It's just buying stuff. So it's not really interesting compared to the previous scheme. Now, the thing is that there is the CRE, and the CRE we ensure that the company that the cost of energy paid by the non-state companies allow them to survive. So this value, I'm not sure exactly how it's calculated, but I know that it bends the market so that the price paid by the customer is actually cheaper from non-state companies than from EDF to allow their growth. Unfortunately, this is a bit unfair because EDF say, hey, I made this energy, and the company said, oh yes, but you have a monopoly, so you don't care if people are doing that. So it's a bit problematic because you add more companies to the field. So this is what the new companies of energy look like. So one can notice that there is EDF here, ENGIE, that are both states, and you see that some of them are really local, like Électricité de Provence, and Provence is a county. And you have some big companies investing, like Total and Eni from Germany. So these companies are very big, and obviously we have to consider that if we had more markets, it's open to the goal is to lower the price of energy. But the question is, at what cost? Do we really want to have that many people in the energy sector, that many suppliers? Personally, I think not, but it's not really a neutral opinion, so I'll keep it to myself. So what do these business companies have? So some of them are purely marketing. Some of them add clean energy. So it turns out that some customers, due to the emergence of the 2007 law, want to have no nuclear energy or only renewables, which can be understood. But the problem is that they just say, hey, I want X energy, and since all of the energy is put into the RTE network, they don't have any, like the electron could come from a nuclear power plant. That's kind of silly because the companies that claim that sell clean energy, they just buy it from somewhere, and actually it does not increase your part in the renewables. Some of them offer the power of some particular power plants, and obviously due to the CRE they offer cheaper costs. So in a capitalistic analysis, the customer has the choice between EDF, that is state, and that's expensive, and to other companies that are cheaper. So in purely capitalistic, you just pick the new company. But the problem is that EDF makes actually the work, and even though the companies might have some production centers, they don't do like as much of the work as EDF. So like which one do you want to actually invest? Do you want to have the cheapest cost at most? Well, not always. So which is why my electricity is made by EDF, because I think it's better to have a state company to have the electricity. But once again, it's my choice. I entirely understand this decision. That is according to the vision of the European Union. Now, so how does energy work in France? So this is the diagram of production of energy. So one can notice a big part of nuclear energy, then a bit of hydroelectricity, a bit of gas, some coal, but the coal is really reducing and this is kind of whole. Wait, am I ready? Yeah, coal. Yeah, that's correct. Wait, is it? I don't see. I'm too old. Okay. And the fact is that nuclear energy provides a solid part into the energy as a function of time. So maybe I should have removed this because I have the diagram here. So nuclear energy is a production that is very stable in terms of time. So this is the curve of energy as a function of time between the day and the night. So the thing is that the solar energy, so the orange part here, produces a bit only on the when it's sunny. The wind is kind of random, so we have this, and the non-renewables are used to complement the demand. And one can also notice that there is this kind of spike. It explains an excess of energy, and this excess of energy is pumped in hydroelectricity power plants back from the downmost part to the upmost part, so that in the day when the demand is high, the water can go from up to down. So it's not really efficient because you are wasting a bit of energy, but since we have this big nuclear part, we are producing too much. So this part that is too much must be pumped from the water below to the water upwards, so that it can fall during the day when the demand is high. And the problem of renewable is called intermittence, meaning that they produce only in specific times, and which is why it's important to have new technologies, so technologies like smart grid, to channel the different parts of production. Yes, so solar energy, so nuclear energy can't be stopped. You can't stop a nuclear power plant, like you can, but it's for 2 months or something like this. And solar energy and wind energy must be optimized. So the goal is to maximize the energy gathered by these energies and their priority. And we use other energies to support the rest, and the excess energy is used for a pumping storage system. Now, as we've seen, RTE gets the energy from EDF mostly, and they have to channel energy. They can't like put everything on the same wire. So they have to manage high tension. They have to provide a redundant network in case that a path is blocked. They have to find an alternative path. So a path is blocked would mean an incident or something wrong is happening. They have to provide maintenance, and some problems occur, like the fact that the French territory is very wide, not like Russia or China, but we can't have a system that is fair to everyone. In particular, the energy in France costs the same no matter the location of your house, like also the stamp. Like even if you are in the top of a mountain, the stamp costs the same as in the cities because they are evened out. So even though the electricity takes a lot of cost to be on top of a mountain, it costs the same. And maintenance requires to repair physically. So this is what the RTE network looks like. So it's a high tension, high voltage, high voltage network, and it does not include the smaller part that are managed by Enedis. And in particular, if I want to go from Paris to Marseille, I can either take this path, so like this, or I can take this path. And in particular, if one of the part is cut, you can find an alternative path. Also, it gets turned out that the demand is higher here than here, so they have to even out the voltage, because else you will have physical problems if the lines are unbalanced. Because here, if you have 300 times the current that passes here, you will have a problem mechanically, well, physically. Now, so the goal of big data is to find paths so that are binary problem. Go through here, go through here. The voltage and current equilibrium, so this is more a physics aspect, so we'll not go too much into that, but you have to manage the different cables, how it's managed, so I'm not going to go too much in this. Temperature is a big has a big impact on the quality of the grid. And then weather, because weather actually damages a lot the different parts, and sometimes you have to be cautious to not damage your cables, so you have to turn down the power. So here, imagine here you have a high voltage thing, so something like this, and when it's the winter, the cable look like this, so kinda horizontal but slightly bent downwards. But in the summer, when it's hot, the metal dilates and it bends down. And the problem is that when it touches the ground, it can cause really big problems. And it's important to have smart systems. So we had a box so that in the summer, when the cables expand, it pulls the wire so that it goes back up. And it's important to have temperature sensors. Another example is from the contactors. So this is a contactor that will go from a closed to open. So it's closed, you want to open it, but it's not what happens. Since we are dealing with high tension, there are arcs of electricity that go this way. So even though you have air, the electricity still passes through, which is a problem. To solve this, we added a highly dangerous gas called SF6, so hexafluorure de soufre, which is a chemical gas. It's highly polluting, and this explains why we have to be very careful for those installations, because they have this gas that is one of the most polluting non-nuclear, non-radioactive compound, because it pollutes a lot the atmosphere, and it's not good to have them open. And sometimes there are leaks of that. So part of RT's job is to make sure that it's not escaping, that there are no leaks. And this gas prevents the arc from forming, so which is why it's used. Now Enedis brings the electricity from RTE to the customer. So instead of the intermittence from RTE, that was the intermittence of production, now we are dealing with intermittence of consumption, because the humans tend to consume less in the night. They are not night owls. They don't put the washing machine during the night or something like this. So they consume more at certain hours. They have to monitor incidents at a local scale, and they have to check electrometers if everything is going on well, etc. And also, one of the main challenges for the future is to manage electric cars, because electric cars have a high demand in terms of current intensity. And if current intensity is not managed well, it can cause a spike. And you might actually consume more than you paid for, which is not good. And you have to manage this as a very global scale, because since we are demanding more and more electric cars, we have to make sure that the grid can actually support it. So this is what the network looks like, and you might see that there are more dots than actual lines. So I don't know if you can see it well, but there are small lines. And since they are local scale, the dots actually represent the concentrateur. No, the concentrator. So I will go a bit more in this. So instead of having lines like RTE, they have mostly concentrators. Now, this is what the system looks like. You have a concentrator, you have a house, and it gives electricity. So this is what was the system originally. The problem now is if there is a problem between the house and the concentrator. The concentrator can't know if the house has a problem. So it's the role of the customer to call Enedis and say, hey, I have a problem. And then they go fix the problem. Then we have a new system. So now with Linky, if you have a problem, so Linky is an electricity meter, a new technology of electricity meter. If you have a problem that intervenes between the house with Linky and the concentrator, every 10 minutes you will have Linky that will send an information to the concentrator, and that will give the information to Enedis. So let's take an example. If you are during the night and that you have an electricity problem, you will notice only the next morning, and you will have to call them, and you might not have the time to call them or something like this. While with this system, during the night, Enedis is aware that you have a problem and can intervene without even you knowing sometimes, because most problems are outside. So you don't have to be there to actually solve the problem, and sometimes you will not even notice that there was a problem, which is good. It's a good thing. So how does the Linky counter works? So every 10 minutes, the concentrator will ping Linky with binary data with two questions. First, do you still exist? Second, are you on? So the fact that we have these two questions can seem a bit redundant, but it's important to have both to ensure that there is a distinction between the fact that to locate the problem, because if you answer the first one and not the second one, it means that you have a Linky that is on, that exists, but that is switched off. So this can occur, for example, if you have connected your electric car and the washing machine is on. What will happen is that you will have a current spike, and the Linky electricity meter will turn off the Linky, and which means the problem will be on Linky's side. Linky will block. So it's fine that both of them are it's fine if only this one is true and this one is false. Now if both are false, it means that there is a problem in the connection to them, and they will have to intervene. In particular, they can know precisely where it is, which is fine. So the information is transported through a CPL protocol called Senelec A between 3 kilohertz and 75 hertz. Oh, wait, I think it's kilohertz. Sorry, I made a mistake. And every hour, so it's for a different purpose, the Linky gives information to the concentrator about the consumption. And this consumption is given also through the same CPL protocol. And every day, the concentrator, so this part, gives data through GPRS, which is a mobile technology. So like your mobile phone, it calls, let's say it calls, it's an appropriate word, to the management center, to the grid management center. Okay, now the problem is that the Linky technology is controversial. So I said, okay, let's answer some of the arguments, because let's try to be critic. So I took a link from I don't know, an association that says no Linky, and I'll try to answer it. So the first thing I read is that they inject parasite wavelength in the circuit that is dangerous for the human body. It's true that they inject wavelength, but it's wavelength that are designed for this purpose. Like no one is supposed to use this wavelength. And from the studies that I've read about this, I have not seen an example that says that it's dangerous for the environment or for the human. Okay, you add some waves, but these waves are, I think, controlled enough to not be dangerous. And if you have actually evidence, like not the evidence from this website that is kind of not bad, but it's a bit like clunky studies, and like a serious studies that says, okay, it's dangerous for the human. It can be interesting, but I've not seen an evidence that says, oh, that's dangerous. Now, the network is not made for this frequency. So what they fear is that you will have a part in your system that cannot handle these frequencies, that will be destroyed. So that's wrong for the most equipments. Most equipments support the CPL technology. And if this frequency were not supported, it's not your role to change the equipment. It's NSD's role. So I say, okay, you are. If it's not supported, like if you are in the countryside and it's a really old equipment, I don't know. I think it's NSD's role, so I don't see a problem with injecting network. Like if like one cable breaks, okay, it's NSD's role. It's not your role. Now, some say, oh, they conduct an experiment in a small city. We are test subjects. Yes, yes. When you do experiments, you actually do experiments with humans. So yes, they in this document they say it like it's a bad thing. Like it's, oh, we are test subjects. How horrible! Yes, but when you conduct a study, you use test subjects, and testing is actually really efficient, so I don't see a problem with this. So yes, I say yes to their argument. Where are the savings? Okay, so how Linky works is that there are 5 million euro, I think, that are invested for the development of Linky. The reason for that is not for the customer, like the customer does not pay. but it saves energy because it gives faster time to intervene, because it prepares the new technologies of smart grid, because it can cut the energy when the current consumption is too high compared to what's supposed to be paid. It has various roles that are useful for Enedis mostly. It also has some benefits for the consumer, like they can see instantly they can see daily their consumption. But most of the savings are for Enedis. So you don't pay the part from the Linky. You don't pay the Linky. It's Enedis that pays the Linky, and they say, okay, so I'll invest for this equipment because in the long run it's efficient. It's efficient for me to have them installed. So where are the savings? They also pretend that okay, so the new equipment like Linky consumes electricity, which is true. The problem is we have to quantify this, and I can ensure you that the energy from Linky is actually way smaller than the energy saved, which is like their question is good. Does the equipment we had consumes more than it saves? And I think it consumes less than it saves, because the savings that you do in such a way are very important. Which is why even though you add sensors, you add communicators, you don't care if you pay this energy. Well, I don't care. The principle of smart grid is to invest electricity to save electricity in another way. So yes, you waste a bit of energy into communication, but you save it in other ways. Some people claim there are health problems, like with the electromagnetic waves, and once again, I need more studies. Like you can't say it's the case, and the studies are not serious. And okay, maybe there are health problems, but we need to do a study in the long run, and it's not something that appears in the first short-term studies. Security problem. So I think security issue is actually a big concern in this technology, because first, the technology can be hijacked. It's possible. It's possible. I think it's possible that I think 2 or 3 engineers can deal with this matter. But there are 2 or 3 things to know: that the Linky are highly secured in terms of mechanical properties, and if you open it, you will have a signal to the concentrator that says you opened it, and people will know. It's not something that will be let down. Secondly, there is a low risk. Like since the information is crypted, it has a special wavelength. You have to intercept the signal. It's very complicated. The thing is that what's the probability that someone to rob you will try to shut down your electricity? Actually, this is very low for this technology. I think that the risk is low because it's too much investing to just cut your electricity. But indeed, it's a concern. I understand this concern. And one of the things is that the privacy of the data. So what people fear is that once Enedis has the information in the concentrator, they can sell it to different markets. One of the things is that CNIL, so it's a commission that that controls the private data. So I personally trust the CNIL to protect this data, and I know for sure that Enedis actually is bending to CNIL. So despite them wanting to have this information, they are forced by CNIL. They are forced by CNIL to keep this information secret, which is a very valuable thing. Like if this problem was implemented in a different country, we would also need the CNIL to intervene and make sure that this information is private. So personally, I trust the CNIL, but I can understand that people don't trust it. And once again, if you want to send me an angry email that I will not read, you can send it. But it's more efficient to do a comment so people can actually read what you did. Because I've received some comments, oh, you do some lobbying, you work for big companies. No, I don't work for big companies at all. And the thing is that these concerns can have an ethical proportions, an ethical dimension, because some of the concerns like security problems and health problems are actually really important, and we can say, oh, it's 100% sure that the health is not put at risk. But the thing is that we don't know enough, and I personally I trust it enough to have them. But these concerns are not trivial. Like when I discussed with Enedis people, they think it's trivial that their problems are negligible. But I say, do you have any proof? Because the system is relatively new, and you can't like say 100% it's true. So I agree with some of the arguments to the security side and to the health problems. But I think in our current state, we don't have. I think there are more benefits than problems, and that personally I will allow the Linky electric meter. Oh, and yeah, and finally, it's the state's decision. Like it's not you who chooses to have Linky or not. It's the state that say so, and uh, you are allowed to disagree with decisions of the state. But at some point, if you disagree and still vote for the person who did this, like it's a problem. Like you can't say the state did it and it's bad, and you still vote for the person who did this. So if you're not happy with this decision, you have to vote better or work at Enedis, or I don't know. So I understand part of this concern. Now, Enedis, so with Linky, you can view your daily consumption online, which is quite fine for the customer. And it's built mostly for the emergence of electric cars, because it will manage the spikes of currents. A small quick conclusion about the grid. So the French grid is changing to a capitalistic aspect and tries to implement new technologies for the electricity. These new technologies require computer scientists and engineers. So with the last videos, this is one of the points I want to explain. And also similar things are occurring with gas and hydrogen technologies, but I will not go too much in detail because I'm not sure exactly what I'm saying, so I prefer talking about electricity only. Now, let's go more into big data. So the energy management systems are divided in two parts. So SCADA, which is signal acquisition, sending orders, management of alarms, visualizing the electric topologies. And the EMS, energy management system, estimating values of unmeasured variables with physical arguments, security analysis, so if something happens, then what will happen, or if the weather is this, what happens, and modeling frequency accidents, so if the usual frequency is X, what will happen if suddenly the frequency goes to X plus 10, and what will happen to go back to X. So I participated in the workshop of Evolen. So Evolen is a conference from the energy investors, but I was not part of it as a company, but as a student. So I listened to them, but it does not mean I was paid by them. And all the companies are French, well, or have a market in France. So this thing had a workshop about energy management system. So energy management systems had 5 companies. So in Enedis Consulting, I don't remember much about them. I just remember they had a cool mustache. Proesis. So Proesis has two softwares. One called CBE to follow the variables of the plant in real time and have monitoring, and Ariane. So I added an extra C. Ariane helps to decide for energy optimization of a process. So for example, you want to build a product X with the initial products A and B, and you have to transform it, and it's a process, and you have to optimize it in terms of energy. Metron, so Metron EVA uses big data to monitor, and Norske Skog and Energency. Well, Energency did a study for Norske Skog, which is a paper maker, to do predictive model to increase the efficiency using big data, monitoring, EMS, etc. And there is a quick video that looked cool. So what does Metron EVA look like? So here you have the consumption in real time compared to what's dangerous, what should not happen. Here you have the energy consumption as a function of time. Here you have, you can't see it well, but you can see where the energy is split. Like there is an arrow, a big arrow about where the energy goes and into how it's divided. And it's important to have this kind of software to monitor everything, because if there is an incident or to predict some models, you can do like this. And you have some schedules with binary variables, like when something is on, when something is off, etc. Energency, so they did a quick things, and they have predicting models for weather and for internal variables, but they only show weather because they can't like explain what's going on in the company, and they build predictive models. So in conclusion, the new challenges of energy require computer scientists and energy engineers. France is investing a bunch of money in new technologies. So what this means is that the workshop explained a lot that they want to invest in new kind of monitoring, and I think it's very interesting because most of the people who follow me are computer scientists, so it's important to talk about this. And that's it. Thank you for watching, and